Well, you might be massively unsurprised to learn that 12 days later, Anna Dinkley has been removed from her job as caretaker manager and replaced by a man. Yeah, Dale talked a good game on feminism and women's rights, and boasted about it and got all the publicity. And in the end, he got rid of her after 12 days, put a bloke in charge. And you can make your own view about Mr. Vince for doing that. Lovely to see you both. Thank you both very much indeed.
Oh, he should have gone to that other lady there. Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Christine Grace. Today's another reaction video. Guys, today I'm reacting to some older footage of Pearl debating a lady on equal pay in sports. Yeah, very interesting topic, and I've heard Pearl at length talk about this, obviously because she is an athlete, so she actually has experience in this particular field. So yeah, I'm very excited to get into this clip.
Well, joining me in the studio is socialist and author Grace Blakely and YouTube commentator Pearl Davis, both, I would imagine, identifying as provocateurs.
Of course.
Let's talk about this first of all. Pearl, I just find the whole personal pronoun thing honestly absurd. My personal pronouns on my Twitter biography are now hot, hotter, hottest. And frankly, if people don't call me those, then they have to be jailed. I go along with that. But I did that to highlight that when I do that and say that, people then accuse me of being ridiculous. I think the whole...
Wow, look at the bottom there. 44% of millennials think using pronouns should be illegal. Oh my gosh.
whole thing is ridiculous. Why do we need personal pronouns?
We don't need personal pronouns. I don't think it's kind to allow people to live in delusion.
Wait, are you
at the end of the day,
And it begins. He addressed Pearl, and she is already interrupting. Typical socialist behavior.
At the end of the day,
other than
we all know what
language.
a man and a woman is, okay? Just because you dress like a woman, talk like a woman, act like a woman, it does not make you a woman. And I am so tired of us allowing these people to let us live in delusion. It is delusional to think you are the opposite gender, and it is not kind to
I can't
enable
even
that.
go on... I love flying British Airways, right? My preferred airline. A wonderful airline. And there always used to be a lovely posh voice saying, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Britain." And I used to feel soothing, particularly if I came from another country back to Britain. I felt immediately at ease. My captain was there, sounding like he was, you know, from some wonderful Pathy news bulletin, and he referred to us as ladies and gentlemen. That's now been banned. They're not allowed to say ladies and gentlemen because there might be one person on the plane who says, "Whoa, whoa, hang on. I don't identify as a lady or a gentleman." Well, okay, fine. I don't care. But I do. So where's my right to be called a gentleman? Grace?
You know how I feel about this. I'm so bored of it all. I'm so bored of the fact that this is the one item that's constantly coming up over and over and over again. And you can completely...
Because people like you have allowed it to. People like you have actually allowed it to get to such an absurd point such as this.
see why, right? Conservative governments have destroyed our economy. We're in the middle of a massive climate crisis, just after the hottest week ever. I've just come over from Europe. It's extremely hot. And instead of talking about that, we spend hours and hours and hours talking about pronouns, talking about going into bathrooms, talking about, you know, all of this stuff that just doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you see, it doesn't matter. Hang on. It doesn't matter to you.
I'm so
Oh my gosh.
bored.
It doesn't
of
matter to you,
his.
but it does matter to women in sport. It does matter to women whose young daughters might be using these dressing rooms. It does matter to the victims.
What an idiot. What an idiot. How can you say it doesn't matter? Like, can you imagine if that was another topic? And if it was, say, coming out of Pearl's mouth? She'd be going mental.
Of male rapists who see their attackers identify as women
And
to get into women's
have
prisons.
those
Sorry, so when you say
issues.
they don't matter, they really do
Let's
matter.
have those issues aired in the appropriate, you know, spaces.
We are.
In, you know, in sports, have that discussion amongst, you know, sports people. But like, literally, it's about priorities, isn't it? There is a certain number of time that we have on.
Can you imagine if this was a topic that she cared about, she would not be giving this kind of rhetoric?
These shows to discuss the issues that matter.
You don't think women's... Hang on, before we come to our next...
I don't think women's sport matters as much as climate change. I think like
does women's
having a
equality
planet
matter?
in which we can play sport matters more than the rules
Does
of
women's
sport.
equality matter
I know
to
that makes me probably absolutely
Does women's
insane.
equality matter to you?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, but actually,
Okay.
I mean, the whole point
Okay.
like that I was going to make on this segment actually is that like you cannot separate feminism from class issues. Like if you're just going around saying like, I don't know, I think the female CEO of a weapons manufacturer should be paid the same as a male CEO, and that's the hill I'm going to die on. I'm not fighting that fight with you because ultimately, like, what I care about are the struggles that ordinary women face every day.
Well, let's come.
You're not an ordinary woman. Ah, this is the typical white liberal virtue signaling. And it's always women. It's always women. Always women. Virtue signaling. I care about this and that. But it's like, you're not from, like, you just said you've come back from Europe. Oh, lovely. Like, normal women aren't just coming back from Europe. Like, they have to book holiday off, go take a holiday. Like, I can guarantee you she makes a fair bit of dosh. She can't speak for the average woman. Listen to that accent as well. I bet she came from quite a well-off family. I don't know, but don't act like you care for the average woman when you definitely don't. You're just virtue signaling.
Come to the main point of the segment, which is this issue of women's rights to be paid the same as men in sport. Now, the Australian women's football team have criticised the pay gap in the upcoming World Cup prize money. Let's take a look at what they said as a team.
736 footballers have the honour of representing their country on the world's biggest stage, this tournament.
Yet many are still denied the basic right to organise and collectively bargain.
Collective bargaining has allowed us to ensure we now get the same conditions as the Socceroos, with one exception. FIFA will still only offer women 1/4 as much prize money as men for the same achievement.
Well, okay, this is interesting, Pearl, because if you look at the revenue, for example, in 2019, FIFA generated £586 million in total revenue. The men's for the 2019-22 cycle, 5.8 billion. Record revenue through the men's World Cup. So the women's game.
Why is this even a debate? It should just be left at the facts of the revenue and leave it at that. The fact that it's even a debate and they think that they somehow deserve the same is just mind-boggling. It's like people don't even understand basic math anymore.
Has come on in leaps and bounds. The English Lionesses, fantastic win, sell-out crowds. They're making a lot more money. They're definitely
great. And if they make more money, then obviously the prize money should go up, but it should correlate to the revenue. If they don't make as much money as the men, they're not going to win as much money as the men. Simple as. Why is that so hard?
Way further now towards where the men are commercially than they were, but they're still a way off. And when you saw at Wimbledon, for example, the men's final was watched by 3 times as many people, and yet they were both free to air on the BBC. You could watch both if you wanted to. So there was 3 times as much interest in the men's game. They played 2 sets more per match than the women do, and yet the women get equal pay. I'm not quite sure why. I don't think it's a matter of equality. It's just a matter of fairness, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I won. I think all of the women should thank the men for funding our leagues because most of our leagues would not exist without the men, number one. Number two, when we have the same numbers, then we should get the same pay. I'm sorry, I play volleyball at the highest level, and it's like, when we make what the men make and get the crowds that the men draw, then we should get paid the same.
Well, see, why is it actually a fight for equality, Grace? I mean, why, if women in a particular sport, for example, turned out to generate more revenue, right, because they were more watchable, and in America, the women's football team.
You can imagine if it was women who were earning more and men started saying, we want equal pay, we want equal pay, the women would be making the exact same argument, going, well, we generate more interest, so no, that's ridiculous. You know for a fact I'm right. You know for a fact.
Is better than the men, and they do generate, even at school level, far more interest from girls than boys, for example. I don't see why equality should be the aim. Why shouldn't they get paid more than the men?
Well, look, I mean, there are all sorts of problems with the way that this market for labour, and it is basically a market for labour, works. Like, I personally don't think that the top football players in the world should be paid as much as they do. I think it's ridiculous, the amount.
But that's market force.
Exactly. It's market forces.
Well, why shouldn't they get that?
Should that be the way that we decide, you know, who generates what? Personally, I'm very much in favour of the fact that they came out there and said collective bargaining. Ultimately, like, the average worker in this country hasn't had a pay rise in over a decade. How is that going to change? That's going to change when they organise with one another.
I am so tired of women whining.
Mate,
it's
the only person whining at the moment is you.
Literally, the men fund our leagues, and we will still whine that we don't get paid enough. And honestly, when athletes do shit like this, it makes all of us look bad. Because instead of being thankful for the league that we have, we go out and whine and complain about the pay.
I mean, as I said, I'm not whining. You sound
Yeah, you are.
like you're maybe doing a bit of whining. But like, personally, I don't think we should be.
What a classic playground comeback. But what are you? But what are you? What? Either articulate a good response or don't. It's not hard.
Whining. I think people should be organising.
you
If you
think
want
the wo-
a
do you think
pay
that-
increase,
do you think-
join a union, get out there and fight for it. That's my view.
Should the women footballers get the same as the men?
Yeah, I think it probably makes sense.
Even if they're not
But
making anything
ultimately-
like the revenue?
Ultimately, like, it's
The
not going to
female
change.
footballers lost
It's not
to
going
a
to change unless they
15-year-old
organise. That's actually true across every sector
Let me
everywhere
ask
in
you,
the economy.
how much?
If you
all right,
want a
let me
pay
ask-
rise,
okay.
join a union and fight for one.
Let me ask you this though. They have got unions. But
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. On talent alone, for example, as a yardstick, the US women's football team were beaten by a group of under 15 boys from Texas, right? Who were very good, under 15 boys, but their under 15 boys team beat them, I think, about 8-9-0 or something. So why should women footballers, who are clearly nowhere near as good as their male counterparts, just technically, why should they get paid anything like as much money?
Well, I mean, you know, it sucks, doesn't it? That, like, as a woman, okay, you play volleyball. I'm a surfer. I absolutely love surfing. It's very hard for women to build up a body strength. This is something that I've learned very much the hard way. And so,
Surfers, by the way, there is equal pay.
Yeah, there is. And actually, you know, it's one of those sports where...
Can a
in
woman
my
be as good
opinion,
as a man or not?
well, it's different. It's a different sport, really. It's not, you know, it is the same sport, but it's very different watching a woman surf than it is watching a man surf because, you know, the average male body is different from the average woman, like, woman's body for all these.
But is there any
reasons.
actual technical reason why a woman can't do with a surfboard what a man can do?
Yeah, there's loads of reasons. Like, it is about the upper body strength. It's about, like, the way that the body is built.
So should women surfers at the elite level get the same as men?
But, like, again, I think it just is different.
She can't answer the question. Every time he's asked the question, her first two words have been like, but like, but like. Answer the question.
Like, it's a different kind of game and people watch it. I
Pearl,
think
you're
for different
shaking your head.
reasons.
No, I just think when we start making the same amount of money as the men, then we should get paid the same as the men. I don't hear the men whining about OnlyFans models getting paid more than them. I don't hear the men whining
Is that
about
true?
models getting paid more than them. Kendall Jenner is the highest paid supermodel. Where are the male
But if you
supermodels?
averaged
But
out...
whenever men dominated an industry,
She can't even hear a point. She literally just wants to disprove. She's literally listening to what Pearl's saying to try and disprove it. She's not even hearing what she's saying and acknowledging that Pearl is identifying an objective fact of reality. She can't even hear that. She's just literally listening to respond.
women will just come.
I get that she's there. That's what she's there to do. Obviously, you've got two people with conflicting views, but there is objective things that you can agree on. Like she's literally just highlighted herself that she can understand the objective reality that men have better upper body strength and all of this, but then she can't agree on anything that comes out of Pearl's mouth.
I mean, I don't know if that's true about OnlyFans because there are a lot of men on OnlyFans as well. But I mean, look, the main point
You
here...
think they make the same?
I have no idea, but like maybe
Well, then
if you
why were
averaged
you-
out the number of men and women that are on that website. Anyway, look, the main point here, the point that I came on here that I wanted to make
Go on.
was that the problem that we have in our economy at the moment is not that like the average
This lady looks really silly.
football player isn't paid the same as the average man. It is probably an injustice, and I'm glad that they're organising and working together to fight for that. But ultimately, the problem we have in our economy is that nobody's getting paid enough money because inflation's eroded people's wages. Even before that, no one had a pay rise in a really long time.
But,
And the
okay.
lesson from this is, as I've said, I'm going to say it again.
Someone get this woman into politics for her ability to be able to avoid the point of the conversation, and also for the typical, I'm going to say things that make me seem virtuous, just typical socialist bullshit rhetoric that ultimately falls apart once you start to scrape away at the surface.
Again, because it's an important lesson and no one knows about them anymore because they see them as a hangover from the 1970s. Join a union because otherwise your bosses are going to
Yeah,
walk
but there
all
are
over you.
unions for all these. It's the unions that are fighting for them.
Exactly.
But just as a general point, though, the principle you think that women should get paid the same, even if they're not as technically as good.
Literally, let's focus on the point of the debate, the point of the conversation, the principle of the conversation. She keeps taking it and talking about what she wants to talk about.
And not producing as
Well,
much
it's a
revenue.
subjective judgment, isn't it, on whether or not they're like technically as
Well,
good.
not really.
It's not. No, it's not.
Because people watch men and
No,
women's
it's
sports
not.
for different
Well,
reasons.
let me give you an example. An example would be the Olympics. If you made it non-gender specific, how many women would win medals?
Well, I mean,
None.
okay.
I mean, maybe in equestrian and maybe in shooting, I think, of the
But
team.
again, I think-
where there's no sense that the men might win.
You can say like, oh, you know, this group is better than this group. But again, I think it's different.
Men are
It's
better than
different.
women
We
at
watch-
sports. Yes, let's not live in this delusion.
And in
I played
most
16
cases,
years
and in
of
most cases,
professional
Grace,
sports.
more people, men and women, want to watch men play sport.
Correct.
I mean,
That's just a demonstrable
It's an objective reality. Why can't we agree on this?
Can you
fact.
name-
That
can
may
you
change.
name
And my point is,
5
if it changes, I don't see why equality should be the only ambition for the women. If it turns out that in some sport women get more viewers watching and therefore draw more revenue, I'm all for them getting more money than the men.
Can you name 5 WNBA players? 5 female soccer players?
I mean, I can't name any soccer players
That's
already.
crazy. I
What
wish we
is
had the support
WNBA?
from the
basketball?
feminists.
I don't
we
know.
would get equal pay if we would just get the support from the feminists.
Well, let me tell you.
Name 5.
Let me
Name
tell you.
5 what WNBA? I don't even know what the WNBA is.
We need our
Exactly.
support.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah,
I
you
think.
really are.
But I do want to mention one thing, which is I had Dale Vince on the program. He's been funding Just Stop Oil, and also he was very, very keen to show his feminist credentials because he owns a football team, and he had just hired the first female manager of a football team. But there was a slight problem, which he only made her the caretaker, and I saw a potential flaw here. So let's see what went down when I interviewed him. You didn't think by appointing the first female caretaker manager of a professional men's team you would get any attention?
She's the best candidate for the job at the club. This is what happens. You look at within the club, you find your best coach, and you say, take the team in an interim period while we do a proper recruitment process. That's all that's happening here. Why do you keep coming back to that?
Because she's
If you
only
look
a
at our
caretaker.
record of appointments.
She's only a caretaker.
Look at our record of appointments.
So if you believed in her that much, you'd have
Look
made
at
her
the record
manager. You've got all
of
the
appointments.
publicity, but actually
No,
she's
no,
not
no.
got the full
That's
job.
not how it works.
And I suspect what's going to happen is you're going to
I
go
thought
and
you
find.
understood football.
You're going to probably go and find a bloke to replace her, and then you're going to have to deal with that.
I thought you understood football, Piss.
I do. I'm an
thought
Arsenal
you
fan.
did.
Oh gosh.
Well, you might be massively unsurprised to learn that 12 days later, Hannah Dinkley has been removed from her job as caretaker manager and replaced by a man. Yeah, Dale talked a good game on feminism and women's rights and boasted about it and got all the publicity. And in the end, he got rid of her after 12 days, put a bloke in charge. And you can make your own view about Mr. Vince for doing that. Lovely to see you both. Thank you both very much indeed.
Oh, he should have gone to that other lady there. Apologies, I don't know her name. But he should have gone to her to get her to respond to that final little story there. That's so funny. It's so funny. Like I said, once you start scraping away at the surface, it all crumbles, it all falls apart. And a lot of it's just virtue signaling. It's pandering to a very small but very loud minority of people in society. But hey, this is the modern world that we live in, guys. That's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comment section below? If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up on your way out and be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all of my content. I will see you very soon in the next one. Take care.